Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Shabbat. We are up to Perek Tetzayin Mishnah Chet. Today's Mishnayot should be Le'ilun Nishmat, Neria ben Tzvetlana, Aran Baev, and Eliyahu ben Burcha Yisraelov, Minuchatam beGan Eden, Amen. In Mishnah 6, we learned that one may not tell a non-Jew to do a melacha on a Jew's behalf on Shabbat. Our Mishnah teaches us that even if a non-Jew does melacha on behalf of a Jew without being told, the Jew may not derive any benefit from that melacha on Shabbat. And the Tosfot explain that the sages were concerned that if we allow a Jew to benefit from the melacha, he might decide on another occasion to instruct a non-Jew to perform that melacha for him. So the Mishnah begins, Oved kochavim shedik et haner. If a non-Jew lit a lamp on Shabbat for his own use, mishtamesh l'oro Yisrael, a Jew may use its light. Vim bishvil Yisrael, but if the non-Jew lit it for the benefit of a Jew, asur, it is forbidden for a Jew to use its light on Shabbat. And the Tosfot explained that even a different Jew, whom the non-Jew did not have in mind, may not use the light that Shabbat. Another case the Mishnah brings, Milam mayim lashkot behemto. If a non-Jew drew water from a private domain to give his animal to drink in a public domain, and the commentators explain the cases, the non-Jew drew water from a pit that is 4 tvachim wide, 4 tvachim long, and 10 tvachim deep, making it a reshut yachid, a private domain, and put the bucket down in a reshut harabim, a public domain, thereby performing the melacha of transferring. Mashka achav Yisrael, a Jew may give the remainder of that water to his own animal to drink after the non-Jew has finished. Vim bishvil Yisrael, but if the non-Jew drew the water for the benefit of a Jew, asur, it is forbidden for a Jew to make use of the water. And the Rav explains that the Mishnah adds this case to teach that where the non-Jew draws water for himself, we are not concerned that he will draw extra water for the Jew. We will discuss why the Mishnah gave these 3 separate cases. Let us continue to the third case. Asa oved kochavim kevesh lered bo. If a non-Jew made a ramp for himself upon which to come down from a ship, yored acharav Yisrael, a Jew may come down from the ship by using the ramp after him. Vim bishvil Yisrael, but if the non-Jew made it for the benefit of a Jew, asur, it is prohibited for a Jew to use the ramp, because the commentators explain building the ramp involves the melachot of building and delivering the final hammer blow. Maaseh beRabban Gamliel uskenim. There was an incident that happened with Rabban Gamliel and some of the elders, shayu ba'in basfina, where they were arriving in a ship that docked on Shabbat. V'asa oved kochavim kevesh lered bo, and a non-Jew made a ramp upon which they were able to come down from the ship. V'yardu bo Rabban Gamliel uskenim, and Rabban Gamliel and the elders used it to come down from the ship, since the non-Jew made it for himself. And the Rav explains, why did the Tana have to teach us the case of the light and water? If the Mishnah would have just taught the case of the candle, I would have said, you're only allowed to use the candle when the non-Jew lights it for himself. There's no concern, maybe the non-Jew will increase the flame for the Jew, because one candle is enough to illuminate for one person and even 100 people. But I would have thought, in the case of the well, where the non-Jew could bring more water, I would prohibit it for the Jew to use the remainder, because maybe the non-Jew will include more water. But like we saw in the Rav, we are not concerned that he will draw extra water for the Jew. If it would have just taught the case of water, I would have said, I would have said, only in the case where the non-Jew brings water for the Jew can't use it. But by a candle, even though the non-Jew lit it for the Jew, I would have said, since the non-Jew is also going to use that flame, it's permitted. Because a candle for one is a candle for 100. But therefore the Mishnah says, once he lights it for you, that's it. Too bad, you can't use it anymore. In the case of the ramp, even though it's similar to the case of the candle, because again, kevesh echad, kevesh lemea, a ramp for one person and a ramp for 100 other people. Mishum, what's the reason it taught it? Mishum maaser de Rabban Gamliel uskenim tanelei de maaser Rav. It taught it just to bring down the event with Rabban Gamliel and the skenim, to show you that somebody actually applied this Mishnah practically. And that is in Rabotai of chapter 16, Mishnah 8. We continue now with chapter 17, Mishnah 1. This Mishnah discusses whether a door that became detached is muktzeh. The Mishnah begins, Kol hakelim nitalin b'Shabbat. All vessels that have doors, such as a portable closets and cabinets, may be moved on Shabbat. V'daltotehen imahen af al pi shenitparku b'Shabbat. And even if their doors become detached, they may be moved together with the vessels on Shabbat. because since the doors will presumably be reattached after Shabbat, the doors do not lose their status as part of the vessel, and therefore they are not muktzah. And the commentators explain if the door became detached from the vessel on Shabbat, it's certainly not muktzah because it was attached when Shabbat began. And we know as a rule, the question of whether an item is muktzah on a particular Shabbat is determined by its muktzah status at the beginning of Shabbat. And even more, even if the door became detached before Shabbat, it's still permitted to be moved, the Rav says, because since it will eventually be reattached to the vessel, we continue to view it as part of the vessel, as Tosfot explained on page 122b in Masechet Shabbat. Now, one may move the door even on its own without the vessel. The Mishnah says with the vessel to allude to the reason why the door is not muktzah, namely that it's part of the vessel, but it can even be moved without the vessel. She'enan domine daltot abayit. In this respect, the doors of vessels are different from the doors of a house, which are muktzah, lefi she'enan mina muchan, because the doors of a house are not prepared to be moved. Meaning, the doors of a house are not meant to be taken from one place to another, as the Rambam explains in his commentary, and therefore, if they become detached from the house, they are muktzah and may not be moved at all. The doors of vessels, by contrast, are meant to be moved, for they are attached to a movable vessel. Therefore, even if they become detached, which, like we explained above, does not cause them to lose their status as part of the vessels, they are not muktzah. And that is in Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.